Rodney Walker, and I am super happy to bring to you today, all the way from Austin, Texas, Corey Tabor, who is going to be joining us. And Corey is with a program called Lifeguard. Corey, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, Corey, I'm excited to have you again and get a chance to connect with you. You have been doing some things in the area of grant writing, and I'm excited to announce it and to share it with those that are following us and listening. And I want to share your story some. So Corey, let's just back up some and get a chance to find out, who you are and what you're doing with Lifeguard.
Yeah, so I live here in the Austin area. I work with Lifeguard, Sex and Character Education Program. We're a part of the Source Women's Clinic, which is a women's health clinic that assists men and women dealing with pregnancy decisions. And so on the clinic side, we do more of the intervention work, helping with pregnancy tests, free sonograms, maternity clothes, baby clothes, formula, diapers, wipes, those kind of things, kind of material assistance and education. And then we're on the preventative side, going into middle schools and high schools, teaching what we call sexual risk avoidance, sex and character education, helping students avoid all of the risk associated with engaging in sex at this stage of their lives.
Very nice. Corey recently got a substantial grant, and I want to talk about that. But before we talk about this grant, Corey, that you were able to secure, let's rewind and go back to how long have you been wanting to do grant writing? How long have you been wanting to secure grant money?
I started thinking about it probably about 5 years ago. I remember when our daughter was born, I started thinking, how can we as a program sustain ourselves more financially? It's kind of hard to get money from schools directly. And so we were thinking if we could find grant resources to help us stabilize and create kind of the capacity we needed, then the resources we can get from schools can be more supplemental than completely necessary to operate our program. So it's been about 5 years.
Got it. Okay, so about 5 years. And take me back to that point where you were thinking about, hey, I want to do this. You didn't have the knowledge at first. What were you at first when you were kind of first starting out? Were you nervous about it? What were you at? Just tell me about that part.
I'd only taken maybe like a 1 half-day class on it that was so basic, I just felt like it was a waste of my time. And so my biggest thought process from people who had worked here before, who had a grant before that it was a federal grant, was that it was just a lot of work. It was very confusing. There was a lot of details. And some of the grants that we had looked at competing for nationally, we were told by folks who worked in departments related to that, you had to have a perfect grant application. And so it was one of those things that it just felt kind of impossible, so to speak, to get it done and to be effective in getting the kind of resources you might need, especially if it was from like a state or a federal situation as compared to a local grant or a foundation grant even. We felt like it could be a big thing to try to accomplish.
Yeah. So what steps did you go about taking to start moving forward to get over that first situation? Because you had the first class that didn't work out as well for you. What were some of the other steps you started taking to start being proactive and making this happen?
Well, I mean, the first thing was I took one of your classes in Dallas, a 2-day class, and really were able to walk through the process of everything that you need to understand to effectively write a grant. For me, it was the first time I saw a step-by-step process. And I'm one of those people, I follow instructions. I follow my Google Maps or my Waze everywhere I go. I follow instructions when I cook. So for me, if somebody can give me step-by-step directions on how to get something done, that's the way I want to get it done. I don't want to be told, go down to the street, up here, make a right at the stop sign, make a left at the Texaco. I want step-by-step instructions. And so that class was the beginning for me, getting the feeling that it could be doable.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it, because sometimes when you're first starting out, even just trying to make it a reality in your mind that it is something that's doable, and you got to the point where you felt like it was doable. Tell me about what that was like for you, because we went through the process, you learned, you laid out the roadmap for you. When you felt like it was doable, what was next for you?
Honestly, what was next for me, I came back to Austin and I went right back to work doing the work.
Okay.
And I looked at a few local grants, but I was having a hard time finding out when the RFPs were coming out for grants. they weren't making it very obvious at the state level of when those things are going to be made available. They were doing some adjustments to some things, lots of turnover in that department. And so I just went back to work doing the program. And each year I would think, man, we need to go ahead and look at some grants. But because I was in the classroom so much and trying to hire staff, I never did really just stop and focus on doing it for, 3 years. I think I tried to put one together and didn't give myself enough time to get it done. So I got probably 60 to 70% of it done, and the deadline came, and we turned it in incomplete, and we knew that there was probably not going to be a chance that it would be accepted. But that's what happened initially. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so it sounds like a lot of busy work kind of came in and kind of crowded it out. And I think that's pretty typical. A lot of people when they're first starting out, they got so much going on and have different priorities that kind of sometimes squeeze things out of the way. But it didn't die there for you. It seemed like it kept coming back to you. And then take us to the point where you finally decided, hey, you know what? I need to get back in the race again. What was that like?
Well, I think our executive director just kept saying, we got to find additional resources. He kept saying, I found people who've gotten this grant. When are we going to apply for this grant? And I started really following the site for the state that provides it. And I thought, man, as soon as we find out about it, we're going to go for it. And so when the RFP came out, printed everything out, and I started saying, okay, let's see what we need to do. And it was kind of happening during the summer when we do a lot of our curriculum updates and prep for the year. And so they gave us exactly 1 month to get it done, and went to work trying to, follow the process that they were requesting to complete the application.
Okay, so now you have your executive director prodding you on to go ahead and go after this grant. Was that their initial position at first, or did circumstances create a situation where now we need to really go after the grant? What was the environment like? What was the climate like?
Yeah, initially, I think because he's a great fundraiser, we were focused on just raising funds. But I think he started realizing with some of the bigger vision he had for other departments, we needed to try to find a way to get the resources needed to do what we did. And so initially, grants weren't something we were thinking about because we felt like there could be a limit to what was available, especially with the curriculum we've created. A lot of the grants are tied to specific curriculum when it comes to sex education. So we were like, man, what if they don't approve our curriculum? But we said we would go ahead and apply for it anyway. And he kind of changed his tune when he saw the people that we knew weren't doing it as well as we were doing it, nor were reaching as many people as we were willing to were able to get it. He thought, man, this is probably pretty doable.
Got it. So sometimes I think it's pretty common. Sometimes you see others are able to do it, and then it brings your attention, man, so and so can do it. Why can't we do it? And it sounds like that gave you guys some impetus. And now you start writing on this grant. You have what, 1 month, you said?
1 month.
What was that like for you, that 1 month to get together this proposal? And how many pages was it, by the way?
Man, I think when we got done with it, it probably ended up being about 50, 60 pages.
Wow, so that's a pretty substantial size grant.
Yeah. And I think for me, the thing that I really remembered from the training was just read the instructions, follow the instructions. And so I think for me, the help was they gave you a lot of instructions. The challenge was you didn't always know what they meant. And then they had you submit questions for the RFP, and then they answer all those questions publicly online. So you had to wait for those to come out. They were delayed on that. Mm-hmm. And I think too, just the procrastination was challenging, feeling like other things might be more important at this time, trying to gather information from other individuals. But it was one of those things that's so big, you have to break it down in order to not be overwhelmed by the process.
Yeah, and how did you go about doing that?
I kind of laid out things that I wanted to get done each week of the process and put it on my calendars. This is when I want to work on the narrative. This is when I want to work on the budget. This is when I want to work on the research. This is when I want to work on our data collections and getting that information in. So it was kind of scheduling it and then trying to keep the commitment to actually do it when I scheduled it, when other things might pop up, whether it be a transition in the office, or whether it be needing to hire new staff. So really putting it on the calendar and then committing to accomplish it then.
Okay, and evidently you met the deadline this time with this particular grant proposal and got it in. What was that like? Was it close?
It was close. Yeah, I think
it was close?
it might have been due at 2. I think we got it in at 12:30, something like that.
Okay.
So we live in the city where it was due, so I was able to drive it over. But then I had to find a location in the building, get a signature for somebody, get a stamp of approval saying that they received it. And then there were some documents that we had put in it that they didn't get. So they responded back and said, hey, we'll let you send this stuff in now that we've gotten the main part of the proposal. So that they were gracious in some areas where we thought we had gotten everything to them. And there were a couple of documents that were addendums that we provided the information, but we didn't realize we needed to sign the addendum showing that they had given us different information.
Yeah.
So that was big. And I'll also say the thing that really surprised me was how things take longer than you think they will. So, I can knock this narrative out in 2 days, and it might take 5 days. Or, I can take care of this budget in 3 hours, and it might take 2 days. So that's the biggest thing for me is I had to learn to estimate how long it's going to take to get something done.
Yeah, that's very important what you shared, that insight of budgeting your time, because I think you're right what you're saying, there's always more time than you actually tend to choose for and think that it is. And it sounds like with that experience you have this last grant, that it came pretty close as well, time-wise. So I always encourage people, hey, try to budget as much time as you possibly can beforehand. It sounds like you got everything in on time, then you submitted, and then how long was the wait?
We submitted in mid-June, and we didn't find out until mid-September. And the grant was supposed to be active October 1. So I want to say it was like September 18th, 19th, somewhere in there. So it was, I guess, 2-3 months.
Yeah. Okay, so a little wait there. Okay, and with it being a government grant, that still was pretty fast, because normally sometimes those things can take 6 months to a year even to hear back, and you heard back within like 2 to 3 months. So take me to the place and to the time, the situation where you first found out that you guys were going to be funded.
Yeah, I was watching Monday Night Football, and I get an email, and it said, and they had been sending a couple of emails requesting us to fill this piece of paper out for a contract, fill this piece of paper out. And so you were getting a sense that it might be happening. During staff meeting that morning, I got an email, and I told the team, I think we might be getting it. And then, it might have been 9:15 at night, I got this email, and I immediately got it, and I just emailed my executive director and said, we got it.
Wow.
And I didn't want to call him or text him that late at night. And then I told my wife we got it. And we were trying to keep everything under wraps until it was announced publicly. But it was just a huge relief. I was excited. Felt motivated. And I really enjoyed sharing it with all of our team who worked to put the grant together. I have an assistant director that works with me that did a lot of the proofing of it and was putting together documents. Somebody's helping us now as a grant administrator, was a volunteer that was helping to proof it. Our office manager, our ED. It was kind of cool as everybody came into the office that day, me being able to give them the good news.
Wow, that is fantastic. So you got a chance to celebrate this. A little bit more. How much was the grant for then? And then what was the rest of it like when you shared it with everyone?
So the grant was for $250,000.
Wow.
A little bit more than that, about 250, 149, something like that. And, each person I kind of shared differently with, obviously my executive director, I sent him an email, then we talked on the phone later that day. The next day with my assistant director, she came in and I just kind of was real quiet. I act like, things weren't good. And then I was like, we got it. We celebrated. I said, you have participated in, securing a $250,000 grant. So it was a team win.
Wow.
And, I enjoyed celebrating that with everybody.
That's fantastic. I mean, way to go, Corey, with your first grant that you are now submitting that actually gets funded, and it is for $250,000. I mean, go figure.
Yeah,
You know, did you ever imagine that would happen? Like with the first one you got funded for, being $250,000?
well, I never thought it would be one this big, and I never thought it would be a state or federal one. I thought I would, do one with a car dealership who does, community work for $1,000 or something like that, or Walmart who might give me, $500 to provide food for something. So I never imagined it would be this big. The maximum we could have applied for was 300,000, and we were trying to really just be real about what we felt like we needed. I'm already seeing how I could spend another 50,000. So I'm thinking now strategically in preparation for reapplying next year, what are going to be the needs to execute it, because I don't think we anticipated everything we would need to get it done. There's a lot of pieces in the process to make it work.
Got it. And that's a real good point. There are so many different angles and different things. What would you do differently that may be helpful for someone to know that maybe is thinking about going down this road?
I would definitely budget my time better, kind of eliminate anything else that I'm doing during that time, especially on something that's a month turnaround. I'd cancel all lunches during that time period. Frivolous things that need to be done. You need breaks and time to kind of take your mind off of it, but I definitely would have tried to have it done earlier, at least a week in advance. I would have thought more visionary about financial implications. I was trying not to overshoot just in case they felt like it was too big of a budget to submit for the first time.
Sure.
So I would think about those things, and then also just consider, how many people it's going to take to do it, because I think we were used to running our program on such a lean budget because it was all privately funded that we didn't think as strategically about how many people were going to be necessary and the different kinds of roles that might be necessary to execute it. Not just speakers in the classroom, but people that are going to help with social media, or people that are going to help with booking, people that are going to help with marketing. There's just a lot of ways that we could have, incorporated additional funding for contractors and that type of thing to help out.
Wow. Tell me this, Corey, what does $250,000 do in terms of impact for your organization? Because prior to this grant, you guys didn't have this. That's $250,000 that you don't have to do some of what you're doing. So how does it impact some of what you're doing now?
Well, the first thing is we were able to pay people more, which in Austin is a very competitive market, highly educated market. And so we require a bachelor's degree, but what we were paying on an hourly rate really wasn't commensurate of that. And so we saw a stark difference in the number of applications we were receiving once we were able to raise the amount of money we could pay individuals. I think it's going to help us with retention, where we can keep people longer, so the institutional knowledge doesn't go out the door and you have to retrain. It also provided the ability to feel like we could actually grow the program and not just maintain. So we can reach more students, we can reach more schools, we can do more creative programming and kind of pilot some other things, because our main thing is now being funded by this grant.
Very nice. So that's exceptional. So tell me this, Corey. So what's next? You won a $250,000 grant, and you've been successful with that, and you are working new parts of your programming and now growing it. What's next for you with this particular arena, and what do you see yourself doing? Are you going after more grants in the future, or what's next?
Well, this one that we won, we can reapply for two-year cycles, so we can have it up to 5 years.
Wow.
So definitely trying to be a good grant recipient so that they will give us, let us reapply and we can receive it again. So really kind of staying on top of all of the reporting that is required and the budget components. We go to training in a couple of weeks to get all the details of what that looks like. So that's the first thing, is not mess this one up. And then the second thing is looking at other grants. I really want to look more in foundations, because with us being a faith-based nonprofit, often there's limitations with organizations about their view on that. Even though we don't teach faith in our program, all of our staff sign off on a statement of faith, and there's a requirement working here that that's a reality. And so foundation money is something we're looking at, just really trying to figure out how can we get people to pay for what we do, so that we don't have to fund it from our donations, and we can use the donations in order to expand, other programs.
That's great. So it's giving, this grant has given you an opportunity. What I'm hearing, a number of things, it's giving you an opportunity to go back to them again and possibly get, was that the same amount or even a higher amount, or what did
I
they
think
say?
we can apply for a max of 300,000 a year. So
Okay.
next year we'll definitely hit the 300,000.
Wow.
Yeah, we'll definitely
Okay.
apply for 300,000 next year.
Wow. So now, some work that took you about a month to do after you acquired the knowledge now has potential to even bring in $500,000, and then even more than that, in terms of it being a 3-year opportunity. The other thing that I'm hearing is that now you are kind of leveraging what you currently have as your base and able to grow your program with these outside resources, but potentially grow and do even more. So that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Corey, you've had a great experience. I want to congratulate you, man, on the work that you've done to bring those funds in. And I really want to commend you on your persistence, because, you started about 4 or 5 years ago, and then you had some times with some things where you were not really doing it, but you came back and you didn't give up. And I think a person, when they don't give up and they keep going until they get what they want, that's the test of perseverance and persistence. And so congratulations to you guys on that. And I wish you much, much more success. Tell me this, what would you say to someone who's on the fence about possibly learning grant writing, or possibly getting the knowledge that they need to possibly do what you did? What kind of advice or what type of suggestions would you offer to them?
I would first of all say it's doable. Getting the knowledge is going to give you the steps to get it done. It's a very practical, doable process. And I would also say just get started. I mean, I keep thinking, what if we had did this 3 years ago or 4 years ago? So every year we weren't doing it, that's people I could have been hiring, money we could have been making, students we could have impacted. So don't delay, get started now, and then go for it. And you'll be surprised with how much success is out there.
Wow, that's great. That's great advice, guys. You heard it all the way from Austin, Texas. Mr. Corey shared some information, say just go for it, do it. So on that note, Corey, thanks again for sharing your story. Congratulations on your success. Those of you that are out there that are on the fence, I want to encourage you, do be like Corey in this sense. Go get the knowledge and let's do it, and let's make it happen. So be brave, be bold, be brilliant. Thanks again, Corey. Guys out there, go take charge, all right?